It's June 28, 1914. The streets of Sarajevo are packed with people. Flags line the roads. The sun is already fierce by mid-morning.
Somewhere in that crowd, 6 assassins are waiting. They have pistols. They have bombs. They have cyanide capsules to swallow if they're caught. Their target, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, riding in an open-top car through the city.
The plot is in motion. And it's about to fall apart completely.
Because here's the thing about history's most consequential moment. It almost didn't happen. In fact, it shouldn't have happened. The assassination attempt fails. The assassins scatter. The Archduke survives for about 20 minutes. And then one 19-year-old boy decides to grab a sandwich.
Small action, big consequences. Welcome back. Welcome back to Small Action, Big Consequence, the channel where we prove, again and again, that the smallest, most random moments can crack the entire world in half. Today's story is about a teenager. A sick, broke, idealistic teenager who missed his shot at history, literally, and then stumbled back into it by accident. Because Gavrilo Princip didn't change the world through brilliance, or through careful planning, or through strength.
He changed it because he was hungry. Let's go back to the beginning.
In this era, peace was nothing but an illusion. Nations stood on a razor-thin edge, where a single misstep meant total destruction.
To understand why one sandwich could start a world war, you first need to understand just how unstable the world was in 1914. Europe in the early 20th century was like a room full of people holding lit torches. And everyone was standing just a little too close together. You had the great empires, Britain, France, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire. Each one enormous, each one proud, each one terrified of the others. And over the previous few decades, they had locked themselves into a web of alliances so complicated that if one country moved, they'd all have to move. Germany and Austria-Hungary were close allies. Along with Italy, they formed the Triple Alliance. On the other side, Britain, France, and Russia had their own agreements, the Triple Entente.
These weren't just friendship treaties. They were military commitments. If you attack my ally, you attack me.
The whole system was built on the idea that the balance of power was so terrifying, nobody would dare start a war. They were wrong.
And then there was the Balkans, a region in southeastern Europe that was, to put it diplomatically, an absolute powder keg.
The Ottoman Empire, which had controlled much of the region for centuries, was crumbling. As it pulled back, new nations were forming: Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia.
Austria-Hungary had recently annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina, a move that infuriated Serbia. Serbia dreamed of uniting the South Slavic peoples under one flag. Austria-Hungary saw that dream as a direct threat.
And Germany? Germany was quietly encouraging Austria-Hungary to be more aggressive. They'd even issued what historians call a blank check, basically telling Vienna, whatever you decide to do in the Balkans, we've got your back.
This is the world on June 28, 1914. A world where everything is connected. A world where a single spark could set off a chain reaction nobody could stop.
Now let's talk about the spark.
He didn't have a glowing sword or a magic shield. All he really had was a stubborn dream and the courage to take the very first step.
Gavrilo Princip was born on July 25, 1894, in a tiny village in Bosnia, a place so remote and poor that his mother had to walk miles just to register his birth.
He was a sickly child, the third of 9 siblings, 6 of whom didn't survive childhood. From the very beginning, life was hard for Gavrilo.
But he was brilliant. And he was angry.
He got a scholarship to study in Sarajevo, and then later in Belgrade, the capital of Serbia.
And it was there, surrounded by older, passionate nationalist students, that his anger found a shape. He became obsessed with the idea of liberation. He read revolutionary literature.
He idolized Serbian heroes and mythologized resistance fighters. He burned with the belief that the South Slavic peoples deserved to be free.
He also had tuberculosis. This is important. Gavrilo Princip, when he walked into Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, was already a dying man. He had maybe a few years left, at best.
And maybe that's part of what made him fearless. He had nothing to lose. He had tried to join the Serbian military once, but he was rejected for being too small, too weak, too sick.
But he found another way to fight. He found the Black Hand.
The Black Hand, formerly called Union or Death, was a secret Serbian nationalist organization with ties to Serbian military intelligence. A man named Colonel Dragomin Dimitrijević, known by his codename Apis, ran the organization.
When he heard that Archduke Franz Ferdinand would be visiting Sarajevo on June 20, for the Austro-Hungarians to Pritis Day, for the Austro-Hungarians felt like a deliberate provocation. Apis arranged for weapons, 4 revolvers and 6 grenades, to be smuggled into Bosnia. And he recruited a group of young assassins to do the job.
The plan, on paper, seemed almost impossible to fail. 6 armed men, spread along the route. Surely at least one of them would succeed.
What happened instead was a masterclass in chaos. The motorcade rolls down the A6 cars, moving at a steady pace, flags flying, crowds pressing close on either side.
The first assassin, Muhammad Mehmed Bashic, freezes. A policeman is standing too close. He does nothing. The cars pass.
The second assassin freezes too.
The third assassin, Nedeljko Chabrinović, does not freeze. He grabs his grenade, activates it, and hurls it at the Archduke's car.
The driver of Franz Ferdinand's car sees the object coming and hits the accelerator. The grenade bounces off the folded-back convertible roof of the car and rolls under the following vehicle.
It explodes. 2 officers in the following car are wounded. Several bystanders are injured. But Franz Filipip is completely unharmed.
Abranovi swallows his cyanide capsule and jumps into the nearby river. The cyanide doesn't kill him, it's old, it's weak.
The other 4 assassins, including Gavrilo Princip, watch the cars blur past and do nothing. The moment is gone. The plan has failed.
Gavrilo Princip, devastated, walks away from his post. He wanders. He thinks about the failure. He thinks about what comes next.
And then he gets hungry. He walks into a Delicatessen on Franz Josef Street, a shop called Schiller's Delicatessen, just steps away from the Latin Bridge.
And he orders a sandwich. This is the moment. This is what we've been building to.
The assassination has failed. He's eating a sandwich.
Meanwhile, across the city, Franz Ferdinand has finished his appearance at City Hall, where, reportedly, he delivered his planned speech despite clearly being furious.
His hands shaking as he held the notes that had been splattered with the blood of his wounded officer. After the ceremony, there's a debate about what to do next.
The Archduke wants to visit the wounded officers in the hospital. His aides argue about the route. Crucially, and this is where fate truly intervenes, the lead driver of the motorcade is not properly informed of the route change.
The motorcade sets off. The lead driver turns onto Franz Josef Street. The old route, the wrong route, the wrong route.
General Oswald Potočarek, the governor of Bodskania, who is in the car, immediately realizes the mistake and shouts at the driver to stop and turn around.
The driver stops. He begins to reverse, right in front of Schiller's Delicatessen. Gavrilo Princip walks out of the deli. He looks up.
And there, less than 5 feet away from him, is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, sitting in an open-top car, completely exposed, moving at almost 0 miles per hour.
Princip doesn't hesitate. He draws his revolver and fires twice.
The first bullet hits Franz Ferdinand in the jugular vein. The second strikes his wife, Duchess Sophie, in the abdomen. Both die within the hour.
Princip swallows his cyanide capsule. It doesn't work, the same weak batch as Nebrinova's. He tries to turn the gun on himself. He's overpowered by the crowd before he can.
He is 19 years old. He will never see 24.
Now here's where the small action, big consequences part really kicks in. Because Gavrilo Princip did not start World War I alone. He lit the match, but the room was already full of gasoline. Here's how it unfolds. Austria-Hungary is furious. They blame Serbia's government for the assassination, and they're not entirely wrong.
The Black Hand had connections to Serbian military intelligence. But Serbia's government itself was more complicated. Some members knew, some didn't. Some tried to quietly warn Austria-Hungary without implicating themselves.
Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany's blank check, decides this is the moment to crush Serbian nationalism once and for all.
They issue an ultimatum to Serbia, a list of demands so humiliating that it was almost designed to be rejected.
Serbia, to everyone's surprise, accepts most of them. But not all. Not quite enough.
Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Exactly 1 month after the assassination.
Russia, bound by treaty and by Slavic solidarity, begins to mobilize in defense of Serbia.
Germany, seeing Russia mobilize, declares war on Russia. France is allied with Russia. Germany declares war on France too.
Germany's war plan, the famous Schlieffen Plan, requires invading France quickly through neutral Belgium. Britain is treaty-bound to protect Belgian neutrality. Britain declares war on Germany. Within 6 weeks of 2 gunshots in Sarajevo, nearly all of Europe is at war.
By the time it ends, 4 years, 3 months, and 14 days later, 17 million people are dead. 20 million more are wounded.
4 empires have collapsed. The Austro-Hungarian, the Russian, the German, and the Ottoman. The map of the entire world is redrawn. And from the ashes of this war, a second, even more devastating war will eventually grow, that they plant the seeds of Adolf Hitler's rise to power. All of it traces back through that chain of dominoes to a 19-year-old boy, a failed assassination, a wrong turn, and a sandwich.
Gavrilo Princip was arrested, tried, and convicted of murder and terrorism.
Because he was 19 at the time of the assassination, just 27 days under the age of 20, he couldn't be sentenced to death under Austro-Hungarian law. Instead, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison to be served in the Theresienstadt fortress.
The conditions were brutal. He was kept in a cold, damp cell. His tuberculosis, already advanced, worsened rapidly in captivity.
He lost an arm to the disease. He wasted away to almost nothing. He died on April 28, 1918. just 6 months before the war he had started finally ended. He was 23 years old. He weighed under 90 pounds when he died.
In his final months, he reportedly said, "I am not a criminal because I removed an evil." Whether he was right about that is a question history has never quite settled. What history has settled?
Let's play the game that historians love and hate. What if the first grenade had killed Franz Ferdinand? The war might still have come, but Princip would have been a footnote.
What if the driver hadn't taken the wrong turn? Princip would have eaten his sandwich, walked away, and probably spent the rest of his short life in obscurity. Franz Ferdinand would have gone home. The crisis might have passed.
What if the cyanide had worked on Chabrinovich, who threw the grenade? He might have died before identifying himself, and the trail back to Serbia might have been murkier, the pretext for war harder to manufacture.
What if a certain nobleman's car had simply had the roof up that day? The grenade would have bounced differently. Maybe it wouldn't have worked at all. Maybe none of it happens. And here's a truly wild one. Historians have debated whether Franz Ferdinand himself, had he survived and eventually become emperor, might have reformed Austria-Hungary in ways that reduced nationalist tensions. We will never know.
Because a boy was hungry. A driver made a wrong turn. A driver made a wrong turn, and the world changed forever.
Gavrilo Princip is one of the most complicated figures in modern history. He wasn't a monster. He was a sick, passionate, idealistic young man who genuinely believed he was fighting for his people's freedom. He was also a terrorist who killed 2 people and, through that act, set off a chain of events that killed 17 million more. History doesn't give us clean heroes and villains. It gives us human beings, making split-second decisions in specific moments under specific pressures. That's what this channel is about. Because the lesson of Gavrilo Princip isn't really about assassination or war or empires. It's about interconnection, about how a world wound tight enough will snap. And when it does, it won't matter how small the trigger is.
The sandwich didn't start World War I. But without the sandwich, the war might never have happened.
But this isn't the only time one tiny moment. You won't believe how close we came. The chain reaction continues. Subscribe so you don't miss it.
If this story blew your mind, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss a chain reaction. Share this with someone who thinks history is boring. Thank you so much for watching. You're the reason these stories get told.
If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe, because we have a lot more of these stories to tell. If you've been here a while, thank you. Drop in the comments, which story do you want us to cover next? I'll see you in the next one.